can just see what, have the ideas recorded. Dan, do you want to add something?
Well, I would just say that maybe you said this in the introduction, but we have been puzzled. We have been puzzled sometimes when we've given students full, more or less full scholarships, except for the travel, and then at the same time, the students haven't seemed to appreciate the opportunity. But we've also noticed that as a group, the people that do seem to appreciate the opportunity are African women. As a group, very few have, in my opinion, wasted the opportunity. A majority have taken the opportunity and done well. You have the highest, as a group, have the highest graduation rate, which means that something that we're doing addresses something that women in Africa need. And we all know that a key to development in Africa is through preparation of women as leaders in different fields. So it kind of seems to me like so many things come together and make sense in this. But surprisingly, there doesn't seem to be so far a lot of interest in funding this. Ideally, we could fund an endowment fund, which means that let's say you raise $1 million, and then every year there's $100,000 of scholarship funds for Africa.
I think that would be our goal. That would be great if we could get an endowment.
Yeah, and so we've been thinking, how can we get some funding not only for students this year, but how can we start to collect more money so that we can always have two or three or more scholarships each time to people that show a lot of promise. So there's a ways to go, but we've seen that as a group, they've been the most successful group in the graduate program. So we're interested in that particular aspect. That's all I would add. Maybe I'm just repeating what you already said, Christy.
No, I think it's good you're adding to it. And I just wanted, I'd like to, in a second, see Chive and Equo through chat what you might like to suggest, just to read off the list of things we've tried or thoughts that we've had on that initial email I sent, looking maybe for philanthropists that have a similar mission for community-based development and women in Africa, successful business leaders that have connections to your countries, maybe the diaspora community. We've tried that before, but that doesn't mean that we can't try it maybe through another angle. Foundations that have a similar mission, maybe partnerships with local universities or institutions, government partnerships. Those are all different ways that we could approach getting money or financing, and we've done some of that, but thought that you guys may have other ideas or ways to make some of these specific ideas work. So
yeah, Christy.
Yeah.
In my opinion, what I can think of that might work, it's partnership with local universities.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that one might work, especially when it comes to the Polytechnic of Namibia. The chance there, really somebody with an open mind who's open to innovation, exchange programs, and so on. But when it comes to partnership through our ministry that gives scholarship, Ministry of Education, I believe that one will be difficult, looking at the rate of people that they already sponsor and how difficult they are trouble to get the money that they were promised to receive. So, but maybe let us try the angle of partnering with a local university. That one might yield results. Because like when we look at my cousin that was just recently admitted, she's from a local university. If we can try at her university as well, because she is influential where she is. She has established this a unit for disability from the scratch and brought it at her level. Maybe if she can initiate something and us, we support her, we give her supporting documents that are required, something positive might come out. And I also wanted to ask, what is endowment that Dan is referring to?
An endowment is the traditional way that institutions here in the States that get fund, they get large donations, and then for example, you know, they get large donations that are in a specific in a specific area. For example, we have an endowment. I think that someone has given a couple $1 million for Asian students, and we don't draw on the principal of that money. We draw on the interest, and so it's money that's always there. And if it's in the millions, then the interest is significant. And so the goal is a more sustainable way of financing scholarships or financing a faculty position is to have an endowment. So you're drawing 5 to 6% on that principal amount.
Okay, and then I was also thinking of, we have these grants that we are required to apply to implement projects locally.
Right.
I was thinking of maybe we can come up with to fund projects that will be self-sustainable after that, not projects that will end and then require some further funding. But then if future generations funds project that will be self-sustainable after that,
Mm-hmm.
and give profit, then there will be a contract between that individual that received the funding to pay a certain amount back to future generation. I don't think it's something bad, because the organization have helped you to kick off, and then you be in a position to refund back, so that money just don't go out and dry out, but you get it in return. I was also thinking of that.
Yeah, that's a good thought. So it's not, so that's a more sustainable way of looking at project funding also.
Yeah.
Okay. Comments on that, Dan? She had two suggestions there: the partnership with the local university, and then the way of a more sustainable way of funding projects that could feed back also into the institution. I see your comment also equal about crowdfunding, and so we'll talk about that in a second. Dan, are you still there? I don't know if you can hear me. Dan, can you still? So Dan isn't responding right away. Chive, with the local university, what are for example, you mentioned the Polytechnic of Namibia. What's an average, if you can, in dollars, tuition price for that local institution?
In USA dollar, like 4,000. That would be the maximum for a master's degree. And lesser. Most of the programs cost around 2,000 a year and less. It's not so expensive.
Okay, so 4,000 for a master's degree, and that would be 2,000 per year.
For the degree programs.
So,
yeah. But if there are other programs of master's degree that they have partnered with other universities, those cost around 9,000.
9,000 for the program.
That they have partnered with other outside universities. Yeah.
Why is it more? Because it gets the credentials of the other institution as well?
Yes, they got of the other institution that they have partnered with. whatever.
And are these European institutions, or are they American institutions, or other African institutions? What does a partnership look like?
Most European institutions. I haven't seen any from the USA. I haven't seen any, but maybe I can research more about that.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know what exactly a partnership would look like, and I guess how the partnerships helps the funding model of both institutions. So I mean, I could see advantages on, you know, cross fertilization of ideas and of faculty, having faculty exchange and student exchange, and so there are definitely advantages here, but I'm not quite sure how it helps the funding model of the institutions to have that partnership. So any ideas that address that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I will take note of that, and then I'll see. I think I should do a small study about it. When we have a second meeting, at least I'll have some concrete answers referred to the current situation on the ground, because I have never really went as far as to know why and so on.
Okay, because we are entering into quite a, also when you talk about the lower costs, especially the $4,000 for the program, we're entering into quite a competitive space there, that students, why would students do our program when they can do a program in their own country that's cheaper, when really you know, maybe you get some advantages of a US accreditation, but in the end it's the bottom line or the bottom financial line that dictates what they choose.
Not necessarily the financial status, also the content of the programs plays a major role. What am I going to get?
Oh, the content, okay.
What am I getting out of the program, and how am I going to apply it immediately for me to be able to be competitive in the working environment? The content plays a major role. Some programs are just the name, but then the content, the subjects are not really that you want to do or in line of your preferences.
Okay, so be competitive in the working environment. That's a really important criterion then.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's really good.
And competitive in a working environment, and at a master's program level, you should be able to run your own program. You know, your self-confidence, things that you are doing, your writing skills and so on. So that also plays a major role.
Okay.
For you to take up the program.
Should be able to run your own program, which is really what you have done after the master's degree. Okay.
Yeah.
Dan, are you able to, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm listening in.
Oh, okay, because I addressed you before, but any thoughts on the partnership or on what Chive has said, partnerships with local institutions?
Well, I think it's hard to talk in general terms.
Okay.
I think that there might be some programs in some countries that would be beneficial, but I would agree in general. Let's say if you've got a university in Bolivia that costs $2,000 a year, what interest do they have in helping future generations fund something that costs $12,000 a year?
Right.
That the strategic alliance there is not clear to me.
Right. I think that's what we have to get to. Even there might be other advantages. What's the strategic and a financial incentive for a partnership? Equo, any thoughts that you have that you want to write on the idea of partnerships? Maybe you could just write that in. Talking about crowdfunding, I think that crowdfunding is something that with I assume you're talking about platforms like GoFundMe or different types of crowdfunding platforms. We've tried that with different students, and it's helped some, but it's not a real sustainable option for funding, because there has to be, I think, a specific project like helping a student's transportation, and I think that's something that a student can help to initiate. So I don't, any other thoughts on crowdfunding?
Well, I've been wondering along the lines of crowdfunding, along the lines of kind of what I said, that there are many of us who think that the most effective way to help development in Africa is to help prepare women leaders. I think there's a lot of evidence behind that idea. There's a demand for it. So somehow to present not helping a specific person do something, but a clearly stated concept like that, that we could try to draft and attempt to crowdfund. Perhaps find a donor that would be willing to match crowdfunding for it.
Okay.
So these are kind of the ideas that I've had along it.
Okay, a donor that could match crowdfunding. I like that thought. I wonder, so let's talk about donors, where we might find individual donors like that in a second. I want to read, Equa, what you said. I recently concluded a certification program sponsored by a scholarship from MasterCard, so I think we should approach a lot more multinationals with companies in African countries. I think that's a really good thought. Yeah. So Equa, you did MasterCard. What? And I assume that was probably so MasterCard then must be it must be Nigerian primarily. I mean, MasterCard I think is all over. I found that Visa actually seemed to be much more common in most countries. Any other corporations in either of your countries or Africa in general that you think would be most receptive to community-based efforts or development in women and development? I think approaching companies is a good idea. I think we have to be strategic in which ones, though. Equa, would you be able to write, or maybe later write in an email, how you went about getting that scholarship from MasterCard and why MasterCard in particular? I think that might help to understand the thinking behind it.
And Christy?
Yeah?
Have you ever contacted local embassies like us? We have the U.S. Embassy here. What assistance do they offer? I mean,
good thought. We have encouraged students to approach local embassies, because we figure the opportunities at the embassies are different depending on the country and the embassy, and so we've left it up to students to do that, because we've thought it would be more effective.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, what we have done has been stateside. Some of the, let me see, I had some of the different opportunities that we've approached. There was the World Bank. There was a Margaret McNamara Fund specifically for women, and that was one that we had some students apply, but then they weren't they weren't eligible because they didn't spend enough time in the U.S. They had to basically had to be a residential program in the U.S. And there are a few other women's scholarships that that were like that we didn't or our students weren't eligible because they weren't spending 2 years, for example, in the U.S. doing the program, which I found so ironic, because then they said, okay, we want you to then go back to, like I said before, then go back to your country and apply what you're learning. Well, it seems like it makes a lot more sense to have the students stay in the country in the first place, and they never have the temptation to remain in the U.S. or in Europe or wherever it is. Okay, Equo added, it was a scholarship opportunity arranged by Coady Institute. Okay. Yeah, Coady, is that in Canada? I've heard of the Coady Institute. We'll look into that. Okay. And were you enrolled at Coady Institute, or was it another connection that you had? Did you do a program through them? See what she... Okay, and I'm just wondering if you had the opportunity because you were enrolled in a program there as a student. Any other corporations that you, multinationals or corporations in your countries or other countries, that you think would be receptive to our type of program or initiative? Are there do you think there are CSR, corporate social responsibility programs in different corporations that would be worth approaching or looking into? I don't know, regarding oil or minerals, or I'm not sure. We've talked with, we have, Dan, as you know, we have an ongoing conversation with the Forest Trust, and they work a lot with corporations. But I don't know if that's if that would be an avenue for us to pursue.
Well, we should ask them.
Uh-huh. Oil companies are more open to community development projects. Okay.
I have a good friend that is high up in the in CEDA, the Canadian aid program based in Kenya. But he tends to kind of keep private things private and work related things separate. But I once we have something really clear on this, I hope to approach him on that.
Okay. That sounds good. What about individual donors? I mean, you can do a search on the internet and find wealthy people from different countries. Is that, do you think there's any merit to going in that direction, to approaching donors? Or I imagine you'd need some type of connection to make an introduction. This is often the strategy that Daniel uses in fundraising, and really how we got the endowment in the first place for future generations. Any thoughts on that? Anyone have experience with that, using individual donors?
Not yet.
Okay. Let's see. Equa wrote the oil companies are more open to community development projects. Chevron and Mobil are both based in the U.S. They can be approached as they try to make up for their negative impact on the environment. Okay, are Chevron and Mobil, do they have a substantial presence in African countries?
Not here in Namibia.
Not in Namibia? They do in Nigeria. Okay. Nigeria, what corporations are the biggest in Namibia, TV?
What is here that is big?
What's that?
Only have the diamond company.
The diamond?
What else? The diamond company, the mining. Yeah.
Oh, diamond mining.
And do you know anybody that would be somebody that you could talk to open a door to begin a discussion with them?
Yes, I do have people that I can open a discussion with. Yeah, it's just that I never thought of it before, but I do have people.
Well, my suggestion would be we need to work up about a 2 or 3 paragraph, a really nice description of what we're trying to do, and then you could go with that and say,
yeah,
this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to turn it around and make it so that there's money available for worthy African women.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I would say, Dan, maybe you and I could work on that. I think that's a good idea. 2 to 3 paragraph description that could be used for these types of introductions. Do you want to do that? I could start. I could maybe draft something and then show it to you, and we could bring it to the next meeting.
Okay.
Does that sound?
And even circulate it ahead of time to people that weren't able to attend the meeting.
Right. Okay, I'll do that. Let's see what else Equa says.
Yeah, because our big companies here have that social responsibility. It's just that maybe they were never approached in this way. So if we can come up with something and sell the idea to them, we might come up with something positive.
Okay.
So let us just push and try.
Okay, great. And then Equa, you said you could approach the Africa American Institute. They partner with schools in building African student capacity. Is there an African American Institute in every country? Is it country specific, or would we start with the I suppose there's a U.S. office here? Write that down. Oh, based in New York. Okay. Okay, that's good to know. So I think we have a few ideas here, and I'll write this up. We have, first of all, Chive, you were talking about partnerships with local institutions, and you are going to look into that a little bit more, especially how the institutions benefit from financial, how the institutions, how it helps the business model, how institutions could benefit financially and strategically from that. So would you still be able to look into that a little bit, especially with the local institutions there? Okay. And then Dan and I will work on writing up a couple paragraphs and then pass that around that could be used to make introductions, and especially thinking about the corporate world there, and whether it's mining and industry or financial companies like MasterCard, and especially thinking where we could make those those introductions and using our connections to do that. Let's see, what else did we talk about that we can, and I think continuing to, this goes with the idea of crowdfunding, that probably the best way to do crowdfunding would be to find a donor that would match it, and so then that goes along with this idea of looking for corporate donors and CSR. Is there anything else that we wanted to pursue before our next meeting?
Not from my side.
Not from your side? Okay. Equo, anything that you can think of that would be good to pursue before our next meeting so that we can come with more information and keep this snowball rolling? And Dan, how about you?
Well, I would turn around and say, is it clear with Equo and Chive what we're trying to do, what it is that we're trying to do here? Is it clear?
Okay.
Question? That's a good one, Dan. Yeah, I think it's clear. It's just that future generations have not necessarily have run out of sponsorships, but they just don't want the program to dry out. They don't have the previous sufficient funds any longer, and they want us to start working on this, even from the local setup, as to work on this idea so that the scholarships can continue, so that we can bring in funding, and so that's my understanding about the whole thing.
Yeah, Dan, I think that's a pretty good summary of it.
Yeah, but maybe you don't know, but Future Generations already has a couple of endowments. They have some permanent funding for Himalayan students, and they have some permanent funding for people of Tibetan descent. Okay, so if you apply to the program and you either come from the Himalayas or you are of Tibetan descent, then there's already money there to help pay for your studies. There is nothing like that for African women, who are actually our most successful group.
Oh, okay.
Good. Yeah. Well,
and we want to turn that. We want to turn that around. We would like for there to be funds, so that when somebody does apply as a woman from Africa, that it's easier for them to get into the program. It's not necessarily that funds have dried up. It's that future generations can no longer afford to basically foot the bill for all the students. It has to grow, and it's no longer possible for it to do that. But there are people that on application, they have a better chance, because there is already an endowment, small, but there's already an endowment for certain kinds of students. There is not such an endowment for African women or African students in general.
Right. And we want to be able to continue to recruit from the same pool, the same demographic, women that are really engaged in their community, but don't necessarily have the financial resources to pay the sticker price, or even half the sticker price of tuition. And so in order to do that, we have to have a sustainable plan for raising the funds, and an endowment would at least be really a step in the right direction for that.
One additional thing, I believe that for our current, that we're currently recruiting for a class that would start in February, another one that would start in August or September. I understand that the applications that we've gotten are overwhelmingly have come from Africa.
Right.
But if somebody applies from the U.S., they get more preference because they're more likely to be able to pay for their degree now. And there are those of us, including Christy and myself, that we would like to continue to have. We think that the program is about having people from all over the world, especially from places where they have previously shown to be interested in what we have to offer. So we would like to turn it around and to try to raise long-term funds to help that situation. So I just wanted that to be clear.
Exactly. That's great. Let me read, Equal. You have some really good contributions here. Let me read it because actually I'm recording this and I want to make sure that it gets in the recording too. You say we need to strategically have videos of past and present. Oh, it's raining loudly. Okay. We need to strategically have videos of past and present African women and future generations to demonstrate the impact of the program. I think that's a great idea, and maybe we can approach Daniel and see if there would be some funds where we could have a video specifically, even a 2-minute video, to specifically focus on African women in the program. Great idea. And then you say, I will try identifying successful African entrepreneurs who may be willing to donate. That would be great if you could do that, even to identify them and start to thinking of a strategy of approaching African entrepreneurs, because I know there are some very successful ones that if we could present our program in the right way, that they might be able to give. And Chive says it's raining heavily here and very noisy. Right? So I think we're about done. Really appreciate your feedback, and I will write this up, and then I think if we can schedule another meeting in January, hopefully that you guys can still attend and that we can get a couple more. And I think we have some great ideas and that there's some really good possibility. And I think the key here is to keep the momentum going. So if we can keep meeting and just in between meetings, keep thinking of ideas and report on some progress and report on some different things that we've been doing, I think that will be really, really helpful. So I just thank you so much, Ikwo and Chive, for being willing to be part of this, and it means a lot to us, and I know it'll mean a lot to African and the women who follow, African women in the future who follow in your footsteps. Anything that you'd like to add, Dan?
No, but I'd like to stay on in this room a second after we finish here.
Okay. That sounds good. So Chive and Ikwo, anything that you'd like to add? Again, I'd like to thank you for being part of this, and I think we have something good going. So I'll go ahead and I won't end the meeting, Dan, so we can talk a little bit. But
okay, you can stop the
I'll stop.